Hi, everyone. My name is Laura Papady, and I'm Center for Cultural Innovations Program Director. As a preview of what's to come in the next hour, we'll look at the Investing in Artists 2022 guidelines and application components. We'll share some application tips, and we'll leave time in the end to take questions. Feel free during the presentation to drop any questions you have in the chat, and we'll address those when we get to the Q&A portion. So we could start the presentation now. Fantastic. Yes, we're at an informational webinar on July 20th, 2022. We can go to the next slide. Great. What exactly is Investing in Artists? Well, the Investing in Artists grant program supports individual artists who are creating new work in the performing or media arts that pushes the envelope of their creative process, explores new artistic collaborations, and or supports artistic growth and experimentation that extends the boundaries of the artist's art making. Projects must be completed within 12 months of the grant award start date. So let's unpack this description a bit with a focus on the words in bold. First, this grant supports individual artists. So artist collectives, organizations, and companies are ineligible to apply. To be clear, artists who have their own 501c3 nonprofit organizations or artistic companies may apply, but they must apply as an individual. Investing in Artists supports the development of new work. If you have an ongoing project or a project that will premiere right at the start of the 12-month grant period, Investing in Artists isn't a good fit for you. Further, only work in the performing or media arts is eligible, such as the disciplines of dance, theater, music, animation, XR, film, sound, or video, to name a few. If you're developing work in the visual or literary arts exclusively, this is not a viable opportunity for you, unfortunately. Finally, Investing in Artists supports new work that is artistically innovative, which we define as pushing the envelope of an artist's creative process, exploring new artistic collaborations, and or extending the boundaries of the artist's art making. As far as the timeline, your proposed project must be completed within 12 months. For some, 12 months may be all the time that's needed to take the project from concept to reality. For others, 12 months will encompass the project's early stage benchmarks. And still for others, 12 months will see the project through its final stages of development. Great. So throughout the presentation, we've included images provided by some of the 2021 Investing in Artists grantees. This is a still from grantee Eric Garcia's contemporary dance film series, Up on High, which was collaboratively devised by a multi-generational ensemble of QT BIPOC drag artists who interrogated notions of queer legacy. And it's a fabulous image. Go to the next slide. So we're going to go through guidelines, first of which is eligibility. Who can apply for an Investing in Artists grant? You must first be a full-time resident of Santa Clara, Santa Cruz, or San Mateo County at the time of applying and for the duration of the grant period, which is October 2022 through October 2023. This criterion is only applicable to the 2022 round of funding. For the 2021 round, applicants residing in San Francisco, Alameda, and Contra Costa counties were eligible to apply, while for the 2023 round, we'll make eligible applicants residing in Marin, Napa, Solano, and Sonoma counties. Next criterion, you must be an individual working artist, talked about that, so organizations, artistic companies, and collectives cannot apply. We define working artists as adults who have received training in an artistic discipline or tradition. They spend 10 or more hours a week on their artistic practice. They self-define as professional artists. and attempt to derive income from work in which they use their expert artistic practices and skills. You must be proposing a new work to be eligible for review. And next, applicants must have performed or presented artistic work in a public context, which includes online and digital platforms, within the last 3 years. Go to the next slide. So our eligibility criteria continues with applicants being, they must be 18 years or older at the time of the application deadline. Next, they cannot be a full-time or matriculated student. Applicants cannot submit more than one application for consideration. And finally, applicants cannot have a conflict of interest, which we define as an active family or financial relationship with the board, staff, or directors of Center for Cultural Innovation. So if you're related to someone at CCI, or if you have an active contract with CCI, you're ineligible to apply. Next slide, review criteria. Before we talk about how the applications will be assessed, I just first want to start by saying, well, talking about who will be doing the assessing. So for investing in artists, CCI invites grant review panelists who are established performing or media arts practitioners, or they have specialized knowledge in these disciplines. They score all eligible applications and make recommendations on final grant recipients. Reviewers change every year, and they're generally rooted in the region served by the grant. To evaluate the applications, panelists will utilize 3 criteria. The first is clarity, rationale, and readiness of proposed project, including identification of specific work plans, timeline, and collaborators, if any, required to carry out the project. So one thing to point out with this criterion, if your project is intended for an in-person audience or culminates in an event or performance, we recognize that things remain fluid and you may not be able to secure a venue at the time of application submission. That's fine. A workaround in this regard would be to describe the types of venues you would want to work in, or to name venues where you've worked before that you may be interested in partnering with again. You could also acknowledge in the project timeline when you anticipate having this aspect or aspects like it confirmed. That is, anything that at the moment is pending or not secured, you can talk about in your narrative how this or when this will be confirmed. The next criterion is that there's evidence that funding is coming at a critical juncture in the artist's career. That is, that the proposed project provides a significant opportunity to push the artistic boundaries at the right moment for the artist, and the potential long-term impact of the grant. In other words, there is a compelling rationale as to why the artist should be supported at this particular moment. This is your why now question, as in, why support this artist now? And lastly, the final criterion, there's a demonstrated record of artistic achievement and quality of work. This is the evidenced by the application attachments, which we'll talk about momentarily. And the next slide. Timeline, very brief. Applications are currently being accepted. Will be until Wednesday, August 17th, at 12 p.m. Pacific time, aka noon, 12 p.m. That's the deadline. No extensions will be made, and no exceptions will be offered. So please submit your application well in advance of the deadline. And then notifications will go out on October 4th. All applicants, regardless of status, will receive a notification. If you're declined, you'll have the opportunity to receive feedback on your application. Next slide. Is 2021 Investing in Artists grantee Shahar Azad, and funding supported her project, Bisur, an experimental album that centers women's voices in an emerging new age contemporary genre of South Asian music. Okay, we're going to move on to talking about the application components, starting with the narrative. Before I go there, I want to mention that all applications must be submitted through Submittable to CCI's online grant platform. We will not accept applications or application attachments through email or otherwise. Now, the application is pretty straightforward. It collects your contact information, the amount you're requesting, which can be up to $8,250, and you'll provide a one-sentence summary of your project. We go into the narrative section, and it has 4 questions. First of which asks you to describe your artistic innovation project for which you're seeking funding, providing details with regards to your timeline, required resources, collaborators, if any. This question is optional. So if applicable, we'll include up to 3 brief bios for key collaborators and describe how they are supporting the project. And then you've got your why now question. Explain how your artistic innovation project is pushing the envelopes for your artistic profession or practice, how it may affect your work in the future, and why it is important to undertake this project now. Finally, you're asked to provide a brief statement about your artistic practice and the nature of your work. The first 3 questions are limited to 350 words, and the final question about your artistic practice is limited to 150 words. Next slide. After the narrative section, you need to upload a one-page version of your resume. Please, I know everyone here is very accomplished, but please upload 1 page for your resume. And we ask for a resume because it's a helpful at-a-glance reference for panelists to familiarize themselves with your experience and activities in the field. From there, you'll upload a 1-page version of your project budget. Project budget is a tool for conveying to panelists what the applicant needs to fully realize their proposed work. Labor, materials, equipment, research, and travel are examples of items that may need to be reflected in the project budget. In addition, that investing in artist funding can be used in any way that supports the development of the new work. We have no restrictions or limits on how you deploy those funds, with the exception, of course, of lobbying and any activities that are in direct non-compliance or violation of CCI's charitable activities. Budgets should have an income and expense section. Income section should list the investing in artist grant amount that you're requesting. Also list your expense line items. If your total expenses exceed the investing in artist grant amount, you'll want to list additional income sources and their status. We have a sample project budget for your reference, and I'll go over that in just a moment. Before I do, I want to talk about the required budget notes section. In previous years, this was not a requirement, but this year we have made it one. Should be the next bullet. We'll come back to it. In any case, the budget notes section is where you can elaborate on any expense or income line items that need clarification. The budget notes section is limited to 300 words, and notes can be bulleted or in narrative format, whichever is easier. And while we strongly encourage all applicants to take advantage of this section, if you don't have any notes or you've included them in the budget itself and feel no other clarification is needed, you can enter not applicable in this section. Great. And so this is an image of the sample project budget that's on the Investing in Artists page on CCI's website. You are not required to use this format at all. We're simply providing it as a resource, especially for first-time grant applicants. For those who want to follow this format, I'll just go over it with you. You'll see in the income section at the top that we've included treated, in-kind, and earned revenue sources, income sources, and that is in the left column, upper left. In the center column, we've included the amounts for each of these income sources. And then we use the notes column, that third column on the right, to indicate the status of these revenue sources of being secured, or committed, pending, meaning waiting to hear a response, or projected, meaning you believe that this will be the revenue that you will earn. In the expense section, which is in the lower portion of the budget, we've itemized the project's expenses and used the notes column to provide details about each line item. Including notes here and or in the budget notes section is incredibly helpful for panelists to reference as they interpret your budget. We can go to the next slide. Work samples. Final application component we'll discuss is the work sample. Work sample is a critical part of the application and should represent your artistic work in the best possible light. We require at least one and no more than 3 work samples. Samples may include audio, video, or written manuscript. In the slide that you're looking at, it says visual. That is a title that we will fix in the deck and post online. It should say video. As far as the manuscript, type of sample is specific to theater artists applying as playwrights only. And although we strongly prefer receiving video samples from all performing arts applicants, if you primarily identify as a playwright and believe that a text sample will show your work in the best context, you can upload a manuscript excerpt for review. And in this case, the panel will review up to 10 pages. Okay, now this is very important. Panelists will review up to 5 minutes total of your work samples. Keep this in mind when selecting samples that are lengthy. You may opt to cue your sample to a specific starting point or to edit it to the specific segment that you want the panelists to review. If you're submitting more than one type of work sample, then you can't submit the recommended total for each type. For example, you can submit 2 minutes of audio and 3 minutes of video, but not 5 minutes of audio and 5 minutes of video. Mentioned that it may be helpful for the panelists' sake to edit down lengthy sample to the portion that you want them to review. That also ensures that they're reviewing exactly what you intend for them to see or hear. Also, think about starting your sample at a bold or poignant moment versus, say, at the beginning with opening credits. Panelists will be looking at a lot of applications, and you want to grab their attention instantly and ideally leave them wanting more. Our last comment is that we recommend that you select examples of recent work, examples that have poor visibility or audio quality. Next slide. This is 2021 Investing in Artists grantee Corinne Manaba-Cueva, who received funding to support A Million Kisses from Lolo, personal documentary about the artist's grandfather that explores the themes of creative legacy, generational trauma, loss, and resilience. Tips and support. So we put together a few tips that can support your submission to Investing in Artists, as well as your grant proposals in general. The first is to review all grant ephemera. So anything that's published in relation to a grant opportunity, you'll want to digest it. You want to consume it. So guidelines, FAQs, frequently asked questions, application preview, a sample project budget. These have been provided as resources for you, so please take advantage of them. The next is to be clear and to the point and avoid responses that are overly technical or dense or abstract. Goes back to the review criterion regarding clarity and rationale of the proposed project. It's really tempting to use fancy words and industry terms, but you'll want to avoid this. You'll have panelists who are representing various disciplines, and they may not understand jargon that's specific to your field or genre. Next, we recommend you have a friend or some other trusted individual Look over your application to see if any important details were left out or whether anything is unclear. When we're working really closely with the project, it's easy to omit some of its most fundamental aspects, like an important date, site, or dimensions. And this is where a friend with fresh eyes can point that out for you. Next, apply early. Okay, apply before the deadline to avoid running into technical issues or other challenges. Another advantage to applying early is if you realize you made a mistake or made an omission, you have the opportunity to contact CCI and request that your application be open for editing, which we will almost always approve, so long as it's before the deadline. And excuse me, in that case, you can go in and make the desired edits and resubmit your application. The last point is just that we are here to help you and support you. So if you have questions, please reach out to us by email at grants@cciarts.org or phone at 415-288-0530. And as I recall from last year, the content that we've prepared got it pretty quickly. So we have a really generous amount of time now to open things up to questions. You're welcome, audience, to use chat, to unmute yourself, or raise your virtual hand. Just looking to see if there's any. I see Maria has their hand raised.
Yes, hi, thank you, Laura. Thanks, everybody. My question is, you mentioned restrictions on the funding, and I just didn't quite catch what you said. The restrictions were lobbying. Can you just explain that a bit more?
Yeah, I kind of fumbled that a little bit because it's in your grant agreement and it's kind of legalese. Yeah, you can't use any grant funding towards any voting, what is it? I'm just bringing this up. Any lobbying, influential activities that pertain to voting, and I think it's like acts of terrorism. Like it's something like that.
Solid, no acts of terrorism.
Things that I don't think I've ever come across with an Investing in Artists grantee.
Okay, thanks a lot.
We have a question in the chat. Would a curatorial proposal that connects to an in-person event be an eligible project? I think I would need to know a bit more about, I would need to know more details to answer that. Yeah, more about what, yeah, the role of the applicant, and you know, what disciplines are being represented. That would be helpful if Carmen wants to enter more comments in the chat or raise their hand. Oh, what is this? It would be a proposal for a media arts class. Such as like instruction. Carmen, do you want to? I see now that your hand is raised.
So two separate questions. Sorry, I'm kind of online on behalf of others right now.
Oh, cool. That's
so
great.
For the first one, there's an event called like San Jose Day, and to celebrate that. And part of that is kind of the curating of music, visual artists, documentation. So would that be eligible? And it's also, is that also like uneligible because it's not entirely a new project?
Right, I know exactly. I know, Haley. I would say that the artists who are performing would be more competitive, or who are sharing their work in that as part of that event would be far more competitive than the person who is coordinating the event or festival or curating these artists around a particular theme. We want to support artists to realize their own idea or concept as it relates to performing and media arts. So we talk about in the FAQs, if you're playing kind of an ancillary role to the work that's being developed, the person who's actually creating the work should be the one who's applying for funds.
Great, thank you. And then the other project is separate. It's an individual artist who's a photographer, and they've also wanted to start like sharing their work and teaching photography, teaching like how to promote your work. And if they wanted to like have like class sessions, would that be an eligible project?
Well, photography, we would treat as a visual art.
Okay.
We would consider that visual arts, unless there was some other kind of media component that was involved, or some performance component that was actually foregrounded. And I would say, but let's pretend that it's a competitive discipline. In that case, I would say, really the focus is on the development of the new work, and not so much instruction of, any kind of workshop or instruction or technical assistance. That can be ancillary, but the thrust of the proposal should be around this new work that's being created.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And
Rebecca, if folks want to follow, thank you, Stephanie. Carmen, I was just going to say, if folks want to follow up by email to add a little more texture to their questions, happy to talk further with them. Hey, Rebecca, I see you've been waiting with your hand raised.
Yes, I have a couple of questions. One is with NFTs, how would you consider NFT in this category of art? I'm thinking about doing NFT art, and I'll actually be traveling to some international conference to talk about NFT art, but I want to just raise the question, like, how would you accept that? Do you consider that as new media art?
Exactly. Yeah, I would consider in the realm of, maybe not, I think we cite XR, but I think we also talk about digital art or computer generated art, definitely under the umbrella of new media. So, yeah.
So do they need to be dynamic NFTs, or like it would be a digital painting be okay? Because it's such a varied field. Just to be clear.
Yeah. I don't know. No one's ever proposed. I mean, NFTs are so new. I don't know that we've ever had applicants that have proposed NFTs. So I think I would just need to know a little bit more about what you're thinking.
Okay, yeah. So, and also to follow up on that, because I'm planning like a group of NFTs, then present it in a physical space. I don't know if I can complete all of that in a year. So say be like presenting it as NFT be an acceptable first milestone, and then going forward.
Yeah.
Okay.
We recognize, 12 months is a really short time span to produce a new work. So you can be at any stage of development of this concept. And you can talk about, say an exhibition that is beyond the grant period date. That's fine to talk about too.
And so looking at your reaction, maybe a dynamic NFT will be more competitive in this context than static one. Is that thinking, am I reading too much?
I don't think so, because I think it would still all be, again, under that umbrella of a computer digital art. And so I suppose, yeah, I don't know.
Right, yeah, because
it's a new, Go ahead.
Yeah, because I'm planning a project that turns ancient text translated into English, into NFTs and new media art, immersive. So I probably have some previous translation text or previous books. I just want to understand how would that kind of text, like poetry, factor into this 5-minute time limit?
Yeah, it sounds really fascinating and a great challenge. I think what you want to focus on is the narrative question, specifically that third one about the why now. And I think that can help to guide you as far as how you want to talk about your project and what you want to select to for a work sample or a sample.
Right. So for example, if I have like two video pieces that's like 4.5 minutes and the text sample, but it's like, reading poetry, some people glance at it and then move on. Some people ruminate on it because they like it. I hope they like
fine,
it.
Because
so
we give panelists the mandate that they're only, the expectation is that they will only view up to 5 minutes. Applicants time and time again submit samples that go way beyond those limits. So we can't be so prescriptive. They'll consume what they'll consume, and they'll spend as much time as they need. So
great, thank you.
We have some questions in the chat that have been on there for a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
The first one was, will CCI use the uploaded resume to confirm eligibility regarding public presentation during the last 3 years? If not, what will it use to confirm?
We'll use trust. Yeah, we'll use trust. If you answer, I think one of the eligibility quiz questions asks that. Have you presented work in a public facing way in the past 3 years, yes or no? And if you say yes, you get to advance on through the quiz or advance to the application. So that works for us. At the end of the application, you have to also certify it before you submit it. And you have to certify that everything in the application is true to the best of your knowledge. So that's what we'll use. That is what we do use.
The next question is from Andrea. So she asks, for the why now question, is it best to focus on why now for the artist's career or why now for the project and its themes?
Yeah, this is a question that comes up a lot. It's relative because it's relative to the individual. I mean, artists have so many different needs and circumstances throughout their career that there is no one answer. I would say whatever is the most compelling for you or for your project. Maybe it's both too. And maybe feel free to, I'm not the arbiter of this, it's the panelists who will assess this. But if you would like to follow up at a different time and just tell me a little bit more, I might be able to provide some more textured response.
Thank you. That's super helpful. Thanks.
And then the next one, it's, would a sculpture be eligible?
If it was involving performing or media arts discipline, like I know we've had applicants in the past that have done like public art installations that have involved some kind of media components that have been like foregrounded. It wasn't just about the sculpture, but it was about these other elements that really dictated or were part of the concept. But if it's just simply a sculpture, probably not a good fit.
And then Antara has been raising her hand, so we'll go to you.
Okay, hi.
Hi, thank you. I was wondering if we would be allowed to have a collaborator that's out of state, but the project would actually take place in the county that's eligible.
Yeah, collaborators can be anywhere. Your project can take place anywhere. There's no priority or preference given to whether it's a local, whether it's realized locally, internationally, whatever. We're agnostic.
Oh, so it could even be, the project could take place outside of state as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
What's
Great,
the most
you.
important thing to us is that you, the artists who are supporting, that you are a full-time resident of the one of the eligible counties. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Okay, So we have another question in the chat from Lisa. Will any preference be demonstrated for projects that take place within the priority geographic areas for this round? And we just talked about it, but.
Yeah, no preference or prioritization. And similarly, I mean, I think there's another question to that end is, does the venue have to be in California too, or can we propose a project that tours? You can propose a project that tours, you can go anywhere. Oh, hi, Carmen.
I know that you said photography is more of a visual arts. Would like video storytelling or like a written blog of storytelling and interviews, would that be something that falls under new media?
Probably more so the first example that you cited. I think you said a video.
Yeah, like a video. Yeah, a video. We'll separate it.
Storytelling.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, because I would kind of think of that in the realm of what we've supported before, which we've supported podcasts actually and documentary film. So yeah, I mean, I think that sounds viable.
Thank you.
There's another question in the chat from Elizabeth. So after funding is awarded, will CCI need a report of how the funding was allocated?
Oh, great question. Yeah, as far as your requirements, yes, you must submit a final report at the end of the grant period or whenever you're finished your project. And it's a really brief report. It just asks, what happened during the grant period. And then, yeah, please just briefly itemize how the grant was spent down. Our usual practice is to pay out the grant in 2 installments. So when you're awarded funds and sign the grant agreement, you get 90% of the grant award. And then upon completion or submission of that final report, you receive the balance, the 10% that's remaining of the grant. However, we are more than happy to work with grantees on an individual basis to structure payment plans that work for them, so as not to interfere with benefits or any other kind of circumstances that might be affected by the 2 installment plan that I just described.
Great, thanks for answering.
One thing I didn't note, but I'll just say it now. I know I said for the budget notes section, if you prefer to include notes in a bulleted format or a narrative, it's up to you. That goes for the narrative responses as well. If you're more comfortable or if it makes more sense for your project to just write in a bulleted format, by all means. And we do note that in the application online and in the preview versions that are on our website.
There's another question in the chat. Is there any preference in regards to proposed audiences, bigger the better, or demographic of audience, etc.?
No preference whatsoever. I mean, I think what's always the crux of the review is, how clear are the details that you provided so we can understand what it is you want to do, answering why now, and then the work samples, because that's really, teeing you up and giving the panelists a picture of where you want to go or where you could go. And then reinforcing the bit about the project details, the budget is also, think of that as another way of storytelling. So it's not just about the numbers that you're projecting, but it's the story that you're telling. So let's say you're paying yourself a reasonable wage for the work that you're doing. You're paying your collaborators or fabricators or technicians that you're working with. You're compensating all of them. Like that sends a really loud message to panelists. So, or how you're thinking about how you're, what's needed for the project. All of that together is what makes for a compelling project.
So they added another question. So if the proposed work is a departure from previous samples, would you prefer previous staged work or a simple teaser of the proposed new work?
Oh, I'll have to leave that up to you to decide. Maybe it's a combination of both. I for sure recognize that when you want to do, when you're departing from your current artistic practice, you want to show where you came from and the quality of that work. And then the teaser would show you where you want to go. So I would say production quality does matter. So I would take that into consideration. And then that, I mean it when I said it, like, give the panelists, keep them wanting more. So depending on the samples, like what's really bold or poignant, what can capture their attention as they're going through many applications.
We have another one. How many grants are estimated to be awarded for the 2022 cycle?
Oh, excellent question. I believe it's 8. In previous years, it was only 6, but we got an increased grant from the Hewlett Foundation. They support this grant program. So it's 8 awards, $8,250. We say up to $8,250, but really, as long as I've been at CCI for 5 years, we've always awarded to grantees that maximum award amount. Oh, and that leads me to something I want to mention. Ask for the full grant amount. Don't under budget. Don't try and cut corners or nickel and dime yourself just because you think that might be more competitive. If I ask for less, or maybe if I cut out some of these costs, tell the panelists what you need to fully realize your work, and pay yourself.
So we have another question from Roy. Does the new work performance need to happen by the end of October 2023, or can it happen in November 2023?
It can absolutely happen in November 2023, because we know that you're going to be busy in the fall and summer and winter. So that it just happens to fall a month outside of the grant period is not an issue.
Those are all the questions in the chat right now. Does anyone else have any questions?
Hi, I'm just gonna jump in.
Oh, yes, please go.
I'm so sorry. And I don't know if this was addressed earlier, but if I have a project where the budget is larger than 8,250, are you expecting to also hear from me how I'm planning on raising those other funds, or you're just kind of like, well, this is what I'll give you?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. Yeah, and you could put in the budget notes section how you're planning on raising those funds. Certainly in the budget itself, you would include those income sources that either balance out the budget or not. You don't have to submit a balanced budget. And if you don't, tell us why. It's your budget. Tell us why you formatted it or proposed it in this way. I would say if in telling us how you're going to raise those other funds, it's always helpful if, for instance, let's say you say, I plan on applying for this grant. Tell us if you've had success with that funder before, or success with funders like that particular foundation. Similarly, if you project, $5,000 in ticket sales, why are you doing that amount? Has past experience kind of dictated that amount? Give us some context. You want to answer as many questions as the panelists might have as possible.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. One thing I forgot to point out with the work samples, it's really important, which is they need to be uploaded directly to the submittable platform. We won't accept, say, a PDF with embedded URLs. It needs to stream directly in the platform.
We have a couple more questions. So Elizabeth asked, can a collaborator be a collective, meaning multiple people?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. That sounds like great collaboration.
Yes. And then the last one we have says, would pursuing a tattoo business would qualify for the grant?
I would I would consider tattoo to be visual arts. And so the discipline wouldn't be appropriate for this grant opportunity.
And Rebecca's raising her hand.
Yes, another follow-up question about the upload directly into the platform. So does that mean you don't want to have, say, like have a YouTube link? You rather have the video uploaded?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm sure it can stream video well.
Yeah. And Submittable has great technical assistance. If you run into any issues, they're very responsive, and they'll help you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So we have one question in the chat, and then we can go to Paulina. So in terms of paying yourself, is there an accepted or recommended hourly rate to include in the budget?
I mean, we'll defer to you. You know how to value your time. But if you really wanted some guidance, the only thing that comes to mind, but I mean, I'm sure there's other models out there. It's called Wage. It might only be for museum workers. Maybe it's more. Okay, Wage, but it's W.A.G.E. And they collect industry standards for arts workers' compensation. Also, Teaching Artists Guild, although are they called something different now? They have an amazing, I don't know what you would call it, I don't know, you enter in like your location, how much experience you have being a teaching artist, maybe a couple other factors, and then they can generate what your hourly rate should be in that specific region and against the descriptors you've provided.
And then we can go to Paulina.
You mentioned in the presentation about being able to submit the application beforehand to receive some editing. Can you reiterate that?
Oh, what I was saying was apply early. It's an aspirational goal. Apply before the deadline if you can, because you might notice after you submit that, oh my gosh, I forgot this detail, or I think I want to upload a different work sample. You have the ability to then contact us through the platform and request to have your application reopened. And so long as it's before the deadline, we can do that, and you can go back in your application, make whatever edits or tweaks you desired, and then resubmit.
Okay, thank you.
And we have someone else raising their hand. You are muted.
Okay, great. Hi, thank you. I have a question about one of the collaborators. We basically do filmmaking and documentaries, and one of the collaborators that we've been working with for previous projects, we do performance piece together. It's my younger niece, and she's 17 and will be 18 in September. So the grant deadline is before that, but the notification is on October 4th. She will be 18. Would she be able to be possibly paid?
Oh, would you be the one applying and she's a collaborator?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. Absolutely.
Great. Okay. cool.
If she herself was applying, I would feel very uncomfortable saying,
Yes.
"Oh,
Yeah,
we'll make
no.
an exception." Like,
Okay,
but no, if it's no, you're fine.
great. Thank you.
There's no other questions in the chat. Oh, there's one more. Is visual art not accepted for this grant?
Unfortunately, it's not. And CCI has nothing to do with that. If you live in the Bay Area, then, and especially my friends down in the peninsula, then you know that the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation supports the performing arts. So that's where that focus on that discipline as well as media arts comes from. Because CCI as an organization, we are discipline agnostic. We support artists of all disciplines and genres at all career stages throughout the state of California. And I'm not throwing shade on Hewlett, right? They're amazing, but their focus is performing arts.
Do we support digital art, multimedia art?
Yeah, I think digital art in the sense of NFTs and XR, like virtual reality, immersive reality, augmented reality, all of those things fall under new media. And so we would accept them. Right, it's not just like,
Okay, so Paulina is raising her hand.
Yeah, I think this was mentioned also. And I just want to double check. But can the work samples include, for example, I have like an audio recording that will be used in the album I would make. So it's kind of like work I will use. But it's not something I made. It's like a family recording that's going to be used in the project. So, or should it just be just previous work of what I've done, even if it's like kind of deviating a bit and not as specific to like album making?
I think whatever sets you up to one, just show your work in the best possible light, and potentially sets you up for where you want to go with the new work that you're developing. So if including that recording or component will make a good case or reinforce or underscore the story that you're telling through the narrative and the budget, that's one way to think of it too. You know, you want to think of all these things as being this one holistic piece, and they're reinforcing each other.
Okay, thank you.
We have another question in the chat. Is submitting to festival consider exhibitions in regards to video and film?
Yeah, I don't think I understand the question. As in, this would be like the culminating activity of the new work, that you've created a film and you're submitting it to festivals.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking. Yeah.
Yeah, we've had filmmakers in the past that you know, it's not the core of their proposal is like, this will help me to. Well, I suppose they have framed it in that way. You know, you have a film that's ready to be shopped around, or but that also presumes that the work is done. So I would say you would really want to focus on whatever the final stage of whatever final stage of developing the work is happening, and talk about this future plan for submitting to festivals. Or, you know, maybe that's also happening during the grant period as well.
And Rebecca's raising her hand.
Yeah, so I don't mean to hog all the questions, so just keep popping up. So I wonder if the review process will be a blind process. So if I can, if I have a video of myself as a part of the 5 minutes explaining the impact of the work and the concept, would that be okay? Would that be
Wow.
excluded?
Wow, no, I don't think anyone's ever done anything like that. I mean, we don't have control over what you submit the work sample. So if you wanted to, I mean, as long as it really features, you know, your work, either what you're developing or what you've produced in the, you don't want to overshadow that with whatever kind of narration you're providing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. But like, because I know some festivals and the papers, they don't want to even have the author's name on there. But your process is not blind, right? Like I can.
Oh,
like,
yes, that is correct. Right. The panelists see the name of the applicant, and they see the demographics of the applicants in an aggregated format.
Okay.
So they have an idea of what the pool looks like, applicant pool looks like overall.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Oh, and I might as well just mention that after the award notifications or the notifications go out about a week or so after October 4th, we'll put out a press release and we'll announce the grantees. We'll also announce who the panelists were. So that's not something that's kept confidential.
Thank you.
Okay, wow, I'm so glad that we had such rich questions and we didn't have to do any vamping. But we're coming right up to 1 o'clock. If folks have additional questions that come up for them, again, please reach out to us at grants@cciarts.org or call us at 415-588-0530. Totally forgot the number for a moment. And this recording will go up very soon, along with that updated slide deck that replaces visual with video. And great questions, and thank you so much for joining us. And we are so happy to be with you today, and have a great and wonderful rest of your week. Thank you.